Hello, Happy New Year's. I hope you guys had a great time during the week, enjoying your festivities and parties. I love parties. But we're going to be doing, we only have two more podcasts left. And then Mark said he'll take a break after that. And I'm going to take a break. And I want to accomplish stuff this year too. So right now we're doing 31 to 33. I think they're going to war, pillaging, doing whatever. Vengeance, it sounds like. And maybe Balaam is involved somewhere. So we'll just cover that. How's it going, Mark?
Pretty good.
All right. So did you do anything for New Year's party?
Well, yeah, you know how it is. I had to go out to dinner with some people, wife's friends, that kind of stuff.
Well, that's good. At least you did
People
that.
visit. Well, yeah, it's
Are you a
not
hermit?
easy, pretty much.
Parties for you? I like parties.
Yeah, I'm not really. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's it's not easy. I'd rather sit home and read a book.
Really? Oh, wow.
I'm all partied out.
You
I
can
used to
do
go to
that
parties.
364 days a year. Only
That's
need like
true.
one night to party.
You know, last week we talked about vows, and I we forgot to mention New Year's resolutions because
Oh,
that
yeah.
kind of a vow. That's kind of a vow, isn't it?
It is what people make, yeah.
Um, and
But
I never make those really, so I don't. So that's why I didn't even think of it. You know, um,
that's a good
I don't
point.
know.
Um,
So I don't
because I
know.
was actually thinking a lot about like, what if we're just randomly saying things about like making vows without a conscious thought that we're doing that? And isn't the vow thing kind of like a vow to God and not necessarily like just randomly saying things?
Maybe it's probably different than a goal. I mean, goals
Yeah.
are pretty good. You know, goals help you stay focused and achieve something. Um, so I don't know. I don't think a vow is a goal.
No, I think
Um,
in context, it's an agreement with God, is it not? To do
yeah,
something.
you're making a promise to God, and if you break your promise to God, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, that's not good.
Then don't make
So
any promises to God.
yeah, like we saw in the Sermon on the Mount, he's like, just don't
Yeah.
even make any vows, because you're gonna
Yeah.
break them, because
I think I
you're a
have to be
silly
very
little human.
conscious of it now, not to do that accidentally, because we're just so
Yeah.
chatty sometimes. Anyhow,
All
uh,
right. Well, yeah. So this chapter here, um, vengeance on Midian. What, remember why? Why are they? These are the Israelites and God. Really, it's God seeking vengeance on the Midianites, using the Israelites as a tool to do that. So why? You remember why this is happening?
no, I forget
Numbers
everything.
25.
I know.
Numbers 20. Let's go back there just real quick. I mean, this is a pivotal. This is a really important. Oh, what happened there? I missed the five. Hold on. Forget about the five. So Israel sacrifices to Baal, right? So
Yeah.
Balaam failed to, God did not allow Balaam to curse Israel. And so Balaam probably didn't get his money, actually. Remember the whole
Oh,
Balaam story? Yeah,
yeah,
we won't
yeah.
go through that. But Balaam shows up in chapter 31 again, and we kind of find out what really happened there. So Balaam didn't make his money because he couldn't put a curse on Israel, and the kings of Moab and Midian and these guys wanted to destroy the Israelites by putting a
But
curse on them. So instead, Balaam came up with a plan to get these women to the daughters of Moab and the daughters of Midian. They're kind of combined. They're working together
mm,
and to seduce, to lead them astray, basically, and to lead them astray sexually and spiritually. To get them, they bowed down to their gods. And see, this is a whole. I'm having trouble explaining this, but just in the last month or two, I've realized so much about idolatry that this is really the war. When you worship the image of a god, a small g god, which is I generally call them the image of a demon or something, right?
Hmm.
These small g gods, you can call them demons, you can call them lots of things, you can call them fallen angels, whatever. And then there's the demons that are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. That's kind of a different type of demon. These are the fallen angels, which can also be called a demon, so just so people know what I'm saying. And by the way, it sounds weird when you say it, but they could be called aliens as well because they're not from Earth, right? They're created beings, not
Yeah.
from Earth. They're not
I
from another
mean,
planet.
it seems like God allowed all these spiritual entities to kind of live side by side with us, although they're not seen. So
Well, they
it's
live
like,
in heaven, but they come here.
yeah, but they've been here all along since they fell.
Yeah,
And
so when
I
I
think
go to
all of
these,
the,
go
what's
ahead.
that? I think all of
Uh,
the ancient gods, especially in the East, because I know what that
yeah, you've
looks
seen
like.
it.
Yeah. So those,
Statues of gods
yeah.
everywhere.
And you know what? I think they were all existing at one point in time as fallen angels that they have made images of that probably has some superpowers that gave them what they wanted, the people to worship them. And that, traditions just keep going after that. But I think all the ancient gods kind of show up and reflect that anywhere part of the world. Like you can go to South America and look at all the Aztec gods, like Quetzalcoatl, all of those
The,
different
the
gods,
feathered serpents,
the feathered
feathered
serpent,
serpents.
right? And they all have some connection to the serpent somehow too. And the dragon, the Chinese worship the drag, or that's part of their inheritance, right? The dragon symbolism everywhere, the red dragon especially. How did that magically just show up as a red dragon when the Bible talks about that too? So like, I think Satan made himself known all over to every culture, including the fallen angels, and that's all the ancient stuff we see today. It really is what this Bible was talking about.
Yeah, and so when you so they bow down right here, right?
Yeah,
So it's like when a person bows down to an image of a fallen angel, they become enslaved. You're bending the knee, basically. You're bending the knee to a demon, and we lose our purpose in life is to be we're created in the image of God. So we
yeah,
are like the statue of God. We're the image of God, but we're alive. We're human beings
yeah,
created as the image of God. We're not God. I don't even like this term. We're little God. I don't go down that road. But God created us. We're supposed to be the image of God. We are the image of God, not the image of the demon, right?
yeah,
So these statues are kind of trying to replace us as the image
yeah,
of their gods, right? So
yeah.
it's this battle
Replicated.
between who's going to control Earth, God through humanity, or Baal or Asherah or whatever these false gods, these fallen angels through their images.
Yeah,
That's the
we've been
war.
in battle with them.
We're at war.
Yeah, it's been a war. And then, I look at a lot of stuff like the image of God and how he made us. I mean, yeah, people want to say we're not little gods. We are the creation of God that he gave us breath of life through his breath of life. So like even without that breath of life, we're just a shell. There's nothing. So that existence that you and I have and our souls are beings that we can't really describe, that's all of God, which nothing else, no other creation has it or will have it. So no matter how much things that they want to develop, like the AI into a beast image or image of the beast that's going to come up at some point, none of that is going to have the breath of life, even though it can imitate humanity in a way, right?
Yeah. So you hear this? We're let us make him in our image. I'm not going to get into this. Who was us? Who was our? Probably the Trinity, or some people think it's the Divine Council, or whatever. I think it's the Trinity. But anyway, besides that, dominion, right? Human beings should have dominion over
Over
Earth.
everything. Yeah.
But when you bow down to their gods, we don't have dominion anymore. The gods have the dominion. And
Yeah.
that's why people are deceived and led astray and whatever. It's because we've lost are when you're not in relation God, see when you're not yeah when you're not in covenant with God, you're going to be in covenant with
I think that's
these
pretty
false
good,
gods.
fine there, or to say that when he did give us dominion over everything, so we couldn't bow down to anything else because we
Yeah,
are it.
yeah,
We're on the top of the food chain.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
And so this war, it's like the biggest issue, really, especially in the Old Testament. You see it. It's a war against idolatry itself, and that's why you see such violence in the Old Testament. Is because it's not really genocide. They're trying to wipe out the worship of these other gods.
Yeah.
A culture that worships other gods has to be destroyed. The worship, because it says many, we're going to see it today at the end, destroy their temples, destroy their statues, destroy their religious objects. That's the war.
Yeah.
Destroy idolatry. That's the war we're in. Destroy idolatry and those who practice it as well, unless they repent, right? So,
Yeah, it's the second
anyway,
commandment, right? Not to worship other
yeah,
idols.
basically first and second commandment. Yeah, so that's the war we're in right now. And there's, and it
But
says,
it's
and I've showed this before, but let me pull it up again
but
if I
I
can
think the
find it
war
here.
reflects the otherworldly uh, spirits or beings that God is protecting us from. So it's
Yeah,
not
that's
so
what,
much
yeah.
about like bowing down to worship something else that they want to treat as God. What is really happening is that they're giving themselves over to evil, which manifests in real life who they worship. Like Kabbalah, that shows up everywhere, what they worship, it's in everything. And what Eastern religion, like some of their God that shows up, even like the CERN, you see that big statue, they
Mm,
put that in there
yeah,
of
yeah.
something that's so like a life-changing event machinery that they got going on there to split atoms into finite even more. And I think they're going to open up a portal there somewhere. But what
Well,
do they worship?
watch my next video, but
On
I don't
CERN?
talk about CERN. Watch my next video,
Oh,
which
nice.
is about portals. The Vatican is opening portals right now.
Yeah. Oh my God, crazy stuff. But you
But
can see
anyway,
what they worship, even the Vatican, like that whole structure there.
but it
It
gives
looks
them
like
power.
CERN.
Yeah, the demons are kind of
Demons have
take
power.
they take dominion of earth in that
Well,
when you do that. But anyway, this here, right? So
yeah.
I think what we're gonna read first is not necessarily this, but it's related, but it's more of a vengeance, a punishment. It's the wrath of God being poured out. This whole concept of devoted to destruction, you can see it's related to idolatry right here. This is
Yeah.
Exodus 22, right? So it's this fundamental underlying thread, but it's kind of almost like the one of the main plot lines of the Bible, this war against idolatry that kind of gets lost
Yeah,
sometimes in
because in
translation.
Genesis, he created all the, great things, and he said it is good. And then it started happening is that they strayed away from God, and then they started creating other idols, and then the spirits got involved in Genesis 6 or something, right? And then all of that sudden is like what God gave them, don't take from the tree of good and knowledge. They did, and then ultimately they were promised to be like God, and that's what they've been chasing ever since. And that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
you will be like God. And also another lie Satan told is that there's no punishment for
Yeah, they won't
disobedience.
die, which,
Yeah, but they did.
yeah.
It took a while, but still they died.
Yeah.
All right, so take full vengeance for the sons of Israel and the Midianites. Afterward, you will be gathered to your people. So this is Yahweh spoke to Moses. So Moses, this refers to Moses is about to die. This is kind of one of the last things Moses does before he dies. So they're getting vengeance upon for what they did in Numbers 25. And Moses spoke to the people, saying, "Arm men from among you for the war, so that they may go against Midian to execute Yahweh's vengeance on Midian." So this is kind of like the wrath of God coming on these people because they were, and remember after Numbers 25, God actually killed a bunch of Israelites. They were punished, right? It was the wrath of God was poured out on the Israelites who were seduced and who were led astray. So the Israelites were killed first before these Midianites. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, so so the vengeance or the wrath of God has already been poured out on the Israelites, but
But
now
why
it's
does
getting
he
poured
dislike
out.
Midianites? What did they do wrong?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Numbers 25. They
Oh.
were working together with the
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Moabites.
yeah. Okay, yeah. I got it.
Yeah, which is a bit you think they should be talking about Moabites here, but I think they're kind of the same thing right now at this point.
Yeah. They wanted to
Um,
curse the Israelites, so they were now infecting them.
oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because this idolatry is kind of like a cancer. It's a
Yeah.
contagion.
Yeah.
It's like a cancer. Idolatry is like a cancer that has to be eradicated.
Yep.
And it relates to the land as well. It pollutes the land. Actually, the Bible actually says that.
Yeah, the other I had revelation a few podcasts ago that everything that's going on in that area, in that land right now, cleaning up, uh, the from the people that were worshiping other idols and stuff. And then by the time, so God is taking care of them. They're well provided for. They're not being cursed. He's protecting them from all of this stuff. By the time Jesus comes around in that time frame, all he's doing then is just like healing them, and because they got so decrepit by then, they had so many sins, it took over. They were no longer healthy, like they had all these kinds of problems. They even had colonies of lepers. Like so much stuff was going on that Jesus had to go around and perform miracles. But right now, it's like he's taking care of them that makes sure that they're fully provided for. So they really didn't have any reason to rebel or do what they're doing with.
Yeah. Oh, right here. Yeah, in this story here, they're just, right outside the promised land.
Yeah.
And then they had it was kind of their golden calf incident, really. So, all right, now here's your favorite part. 1,000 from each tribe of all the tribes of Israel you shall send to the war. So this is actually on the top of my list here. Um, is the Hebrew 1,000, of course, is our word. Where is it? Oh, it's number verse
Ellis?
4, LF.
Mm-hmm. It means a
And
thousand.
and no, it's interesting in this chapter or in this episode, we're going to see it used here as cattle and herd, which it
Mm-hmm.
is used that way, and we're going to see it used in military unit. So I think what I've landed on now, this word one, it would be one military unit. That's about as good as you can get, I think. From my theory, which is not my theory, it's been going around for a couple hundred years, but
Yeah, or it can just
one,
mean 1,000.
but it was written in Hebrew, and what I think is that before the exile, it definitely meant a military unit. So how many people were in the unit is debatable, but there are no military units in the world that have 1,000 people because they're always subdivided into smaller units. So what I'm thinking, this would be one platoon or one squad from each tribe. Actually makes a lot of sense. Send one squad from each tribe, not 1,000 people from each tribe. One squad. It's a collective
Well,
noun.
if
How
there's
many people
two,
are in there is certainly debatable, but one group of soldiers from each tribe. I think that's what it's saying right here. And maybe we're not supposed to know. It doesn't really tell us how
it
many
says
are in each.
1,000. No,
No, it's right here. It's written in Hebrew originally, like
no, I
3,000 years ago.
know, but God is in charge of the Bible, so he can, if he
Oh,
wanted
let's
to.
not even go there because we disagree on that fundamental
I
point.
know, but
We
if there are
really
two
do.
million people, then 1,000 is not a big stretch for each tribe to
Yeah, I know. It's all
war.
relative. If you think it means 1,000, then that works out. If you think it means unit, then that also works as well because it changes all the numbers.
I
But
know. Well, you're the unit guy, I'm the 1,000 person, so we'll leave it at that. I think there are
Military
a lot of
unit, a
people.
group of soldiers. Send one group of soldiers
Well,
from
move it
each
up.
tribe.
It also means 1,000 right there, right there.
In
Six.
some contexts, it may
No,
even mean a very great countless number. So which choose your, so you're just choosing a random definition. This is a military context. It can also mean clan. We're going to see it being used as herds of animals today in this
okay.
episode. You're going to see it in
But
the
it also said assumed to be an actual mathematical cardinal, but in some context. So you gotta highlight the actual mathematical cardinal too.
here. It's used. Okay, check this out. Um, since you're in the King James, which was like the 10th English Bible ever made, revision of previous Bibles. Deuteronomy 7:13. What does this word mean? Kine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't speak King James English, but kine in Hebrew is Eleph.
Yeah.
So it's
So
translated as kine
herd of
here.
flocks,
Kine.
right?
It's
Yeah.
kine in English. That's your word for thousand is now kine, and nobody knows what
No,
this
I
means.
mean when it
But
read
it's Eleph.
the King James where it says 1,000 from each tribe, where go up a little bit, wherever it said that.
Well, that's a different verse.
Oh.
It's the same as what it says here. Anyway, we've talked about that enough. So,
Yeah, we're never gonna agree on that, so we can
but
just
it says
accept it.
one Eleph from each tribe. You think it
Yeah.
means 1,000 because that's what all the English Bibles say, which were written by Bible scholars.
Hmm.
You're trusting
And
the
by God.
scholars. I'm
No, I'm not.
trusting
I'm trusting
the.
God. Okay, he made your eyeball. He can write a book, and then he can.
Yeah, it's right here. He wrote it in Hebrew 3,000 years ago.
Yeah, but he knows English speaking
The
people are
humans.
the ones who are gonna discuss it, talk about it, and
It's
learn it.
one Eleph from each tribe of all the tribes of Israel you shall send to the war. So they were furnished from the thousands of Israel. Okay, verse 5, from the Eleph of Israel, from the does that even make sense? They were furnished from the thousands of Israel, 1,000 from each tribe, 12,000 armed for war. I would say they were furnished from the clans or the squads or platoon, the units of Israel, collective noun, one Eleph, one military unit from each tribe, 12 units armed for war. Either
Except
way,
he
it's a unit.
already
No,
numbered
we
them.
agree. We agree it's a unit. You think it's a unit of 1,000 people. I think it's a unit of a smaller number of people. This is a military
Well,
unit.
I'm
They're calling
going.
one unit is 1,000 people. That's what you think.
I just think it's 1,000 people. I'm not saying one way or the other. So, like in the previous
But
number, when
you
they
think
took the
it's a
census,
military unit though. It's a yeah. Yeah, it's
when
the
they
word
took,
Aleph too. If you define the one word differently, it's going to mean this, it's going to be consistent either way.
yeah, I understand that. But I think it was always the greater numbers exactly as God pronounced it. 600, whatever, thousand people
Aleph,
of
600 Aleph.
uh, men.
Of fighting men. Yeah.
Yeah.
600 military units. And you think
Well,
a military unit is 1,000 people. That's fine. That's what you believe. That's what most people believe.
no, I just take the numbers literally. I don't put them in any sort of
Well, it was written in Hebrew.
or
So we
unit.
got to go correct the Hebrew then. The Hebrew is wrong.
I don't have to correct it because it's
King
God
James
who wrote
Version's
it.
right. King James Version is right. Everything else is satanic.
Well, you have to go talk to God about it. I'm only
I
believing what He
have. He's
says.
told me. He's revealed it.
Oh, told you it's a smaller number, then so be it. I can't change that.
Anyway,
I wasn't even
I'm mentioning,
there.
I'm sharing this with the audience so they can decide themselves. All
All
right.
right, they can follow you.
I mean, you absolutely. We would need to understand your view, and I'm sharing my view, and people can
No,
decide for themselves.
okay.
Um,
All right,
uh,
past the LF. What's the story about?
so they're going to war, right? Obviously, a military context, which a lot of the Old Testament is military, which And Moses sent them 1,000 or one LF, one unit from each tribe to the war, which makes sense, right? The whole tribe is working together, right? So send some, you know, a group of people from each tribe going to war. And
Yeah.
Phinehas, remember this guy, the son of the high priest. Eleazar's the priest now. Aaron has died. And Phinehas is the guy who kind of saved the day in Numbers 25. His job is he's a Levite. He's the son of the priest, so he has a certain role to play to protect the tabernacle and all this kind of things. It's interesting that he's going to war with them. So a Levite, the son of the high priest, is actually going to war, but he's not going to be like fighting with swords and stuff. He's you know, well, it's going to tell us what he does. And Phinehas, the son, went to the war with them, and the holy vessels and the trumpets for the alarm in his hand. So remember these trumpets that blow the alarm.
Mm.
And the holy vessels, it's a bit unclear what that is. Could it be the Ark of the Covenant or the thing, the Urim and Thummim kind of thing?
Yeah.
Anyway, he's there kind of as instead of because now you'd think that Moses would go, but I guess not. It's Phinehas is going. Um, so anyway,
I think it was
you
all
know,
that holy stuff in the tabernacle that they had to protect.
something, yeah, well, something that he could kind of bring with him, yeah.
Yeah.
But he's going there. They did, you know, in the future wars, they bring the ark, goes
Yeah.
out in front. Um, so they made war against Midian. Um, so it's kind of interesting because the Midianites they kind of started like a spiritual war against Israel, but now
Hmm.
they're retaliating physically, really.
Yeah, even
And just
spiritual war is a bit scary to learn about that they could actually do that. So what would it have meant if they were allowed to curse them like
well, they
they
couldn't
were
curse them, but they could
spiritual?
deceive them and they could tempt them into worshiping other gods, which is kind of what they're doing to us today, right? They're always doing
Yeah.
this. That's their little loophole. They're kind of allowed to do it because it kind of tests us to see where we're at. It tests our loyalty, and you know, it's the wheat and tares. Those who are not really loyal to God will be led astray. You know, and maybe that's kind of okay because you know that's why,
Maybe God
to a
allows
certain
it.
extent, yeah, yeah, because the God allows it, yeah, to test it. There's a verse that literally says to test the Israelites.
Yeah, I was just gonna say to tempt them so they could choose which God they
Yeah,
want to serve. So I
exactly.
think they all
Yeah.
know deep down, their soul knows.
Yeah, that's why you try to like wake people up about the idolatry. They don't care. They want to be
Yeah.
people are addicted to idolatry, to
Yep.
worshiping other
Sure.
gods and worshiping created beings. Because even the spiritual beings, the angels, whatever, they're created beings. They're creation. They're creatures,
Yeah, I
really.
think the reason why they do it, they get immediate desires met versus
Yeah,
God.
but they're enslaved by them. That's why human beings are enslaved, because we're enslaved to the demons. And
Yeah,
Jesus set us free. There's freedom in Christ, but
right.
most people want to remain slaves to the
Yeah, there was
demons.
another thought that I had that um, God has made men like through the spiritual stuff, but Satan has used women as the source. Like he went to Eve while God went to Adam. Like all the stories are like male centered for God, but all the satanic stuff is like female centered. So it's kind of opposite. Not that it matters here, but I just thought of that.
Yeah. All right. So they made war against Midian just as Yahweh had commanded Moses, and they killed every male.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to see something interesting happening. They killed every male, but yet wasn't it the women who actually seduced the Israelites, right? So,
Yeah. Well, from the women of Midianites, right? Not the
and
Israelites.
Moabites.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. They're killing the Midianites right here, but they killed every male first. I
Right.
guess because they're at war, it kind of makes sense. They
Mm,
killed the kings of Midian, which is kind of a big deal,
yeah.
I think they were named already. These are
Mm,
the guys who were working with Balaam, along with the rest of their slain, Evi and Rechem and Zur. Now, Zur was mentioned in Numbers 25,
Hmm.
named, which was the daughter of a king of Midian.
Yeah.
So it's actually there's a lot of political stuff going on as well, and that it would be like killing the princess of a country, right? It's kind of a big deal. And Hur and Reba, the five kings of Midian, they also killed Balaam. There's Balaam,
Hmm.
the son of Beor, with the sword. Remember the angel of vengeance had the sword before,
Yeah.
and now he's actually killed with the sword through the Israelites, actually. So in
Hey,
a way, the Israelites are being used kind of like the angel of the Lord.
right.
They're used for the to execute the contamination, to exterminate the
Well, they had
contamination
to
of the false
participate.
gods.
They had to participate to get rid of their own cancer that they brought upon themselves. They already knew, but
Yeah.
they,
Well, the Israelites were punished already.
yeah.
Not all of them were led astray, just some of them.
Look at the name Reba. That's a Midianite name?
I don't know. I guess so.
Reba
Reba Mac.
McEntire? Maybe she's a Midianite. I don't know.
Gee, I'm not sure you got the right pronoun there, but they killed Balaam with the sword. Balaam, by the way, see here, Balaam is involved, right? We haven't heard about Balaam since Numbers 24. And
Yeah.
now here he is. It's like, oh, okay, Balaam was involved in all this, right?
Hmm.
Which is why, right here in Revelation 2, you have there some who hold to the teaching of Balaam, who kept teaching Balak to put a stumbling block before the sons of Israel to eat things sacrificed to idols. Eat, see, that's you're basically it's like the Lord's Supper, but for the demons, right? Eat things
Yeah.
sacrificed to idols and to commit sexual immorality. This is kind of like a baptism into the covenant with demons.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's yeah. All right. So they killed Balaam. All right. Because remember, when you read the story of Balaam, he doesn't seem so bad in a way, because he
Not,
doesn't actually do anything bad. God doesn't let him do anything really bad. But here we see what he actually did. He got his money by conspiring with the foreign countries who were trying to destroy Israel.
he was a double agent. He was
Kind of, yeah,
like saying to God, okay, I won't do it. But then he went to these guys and said, all right,
yeah.
we'll corrupt them instead.
All right, and then now the sons of Israel captured the women of Midian and their little ones and all their cattle and
Yeah.
all their flocks and all their goods they plundered. So that they're not killing the women and the children, which is they do later on, actually. They kill every single person and everything and the cattle. But right here, this is not a true devoting to destruction. This is more of a punishment, you know, the wrath of God. Then they burned all their cities where they lived and all their camps with fire.
But why do they
So,
want the women and children then?
well, actually, they just killed all the men, right?
Yeah.
So who's going
They
to
have
take
to
care of
kill.
these women and children?
Well, they would have to.
Yeah, that's what happens.
But why would they do that though? Why would they not just kill them all equally?
Well, they're not.
And I thought the
Well,
whole idea
they,
was that they were worshiping other gods, which was primarily corrupted by the women in that land. So why
well,
are they
it's going
not?
to explain. Let's see what happens. It's going to explain all these
All right.
things in a minute. And they took all the spoil and all the loot, both of man and beast. So they took, the valuables, livestock, and they're going to divide these up later on. And they brought the captives and the loot. Now, I'm assuming this would be women and children because they killed all the men.
Hmm.
And the spoil to Moses and to Eleazar the priest and to the congregation of the sons of Israel, to the camp at the plains of Moab, which are by the Jordan opposite Jericho. And Moses and Eleazar the priest and all their leaders of the congregation went out to meet them outside the camp. And Moses was angry with the officers of the army. So again, you have military units with officers and just like a normal army. The commanders of thousands, right? So there's a military unit with a commander, the commanders of hundreds. That's a different military unit, probably a smaller one in my opinion, but either way, it's smaller. It's a unit of you think it's a unit of 1,000 and a unit of 100. Okay, whatever. So there's a military, organized military with
Yeah.
commanders and soldiers who had come from service in the war. So Moses said to them, "Have you spared all the women? Have you spared all the women?" Well, they have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Behold, these caused the sons of Israel through the word of Balaam to act unfaithfully against Yahweh in
Yeah.
the matter of Peor, which is Numbers 25. So the plague was among the congregation of Yahweh. So they kind of caused the plague. So now kill every male among the little ones. So kill all the boys because the
Yeah.
boys are going to grow up to be men and they're going to be a little bit upset about what happened. They may seek vengeance themselves. Kill every woman who has known man intimately. So now they're going to kill the women who seduced the Israelites. Not every woman. They're going to spare
Hmm.
the virgins.
Well, what difference does it make to do that then?
No, no,
Because
no. They got to kill the women who seduced the
no,
Israelites
that I
because they.
got. But what? Why
So,
spare even the ones that are virgin? Like they're still learning from all of
but
that.
all the girls who have not known man intimately spare for yourselves because they're
See,
going to take care of them.
why?
They don't want to just kill innocent
Okay, not
young
the.
women.
Yeah, yeah.
So they all the men, all the men and boys have been killed, and the
So the
whores,
the only ones who are spared then are virgin girls. That's it.
virgin women, yeah, because they can be
Retrained.
assimilated. They can be assimilated into Israel.
Well, what about young boys? They couldn't?
They're killed.
Yeah,
No,
but
no, they're going to grow up
why?
to be young men.
Yeah, but they were innocent too.
They're going to grow up to be young men who might not be so easily assimilated.
Mm,
They're going to remember that, hey, you guys killed my father.
yeah. Well, I guess
A woman
girls are gonna
joins
do
into a
anything.
family. Yeah, a woman will join into a family. That's this actually in the ancient in this time period, and this was common practice actually
Yeah,
for everybody. This is normal. This is normal warfare back then. They you kill all the men in battle, right? And then there's a bunch of women who have not been killed. So
yeah,
normally they would spare all the women, but in this
right.
case, some of the women were actually guilty of you know,
Yeah,
something that needed to be punished. So normally they would spare all the women because only the men are fighting each other in battle. And then you got all
yeah,
these women whose husbands and fathers have died and whatnot. And what are they going to do? Someone has to take care of the women. So they would actually take care of the women and children. And normally they would not kill any of the children.
yeah, but they
But
did here.
yeah, because I think they're, whatever. They were
So then the Israelites had their genetics were incorporating
well,
other,
Moses' wife was a Midianite.
yeah. So they were never like,
These guys are related to Abraham, actually. The Moabites, Lot, right? They're
yeah,
related to Lot was
the
Abraham's
cousin or something.
cousin.
Yeah,
Yeah, so the Moabites and the Midianites. See, all these people here in the east of the Jordan were actually related to, and the
yeah,
Edomites as well. They're all related to Abraham,
right.
but
So they
they're
were
not the
kind of like,
Israelites. So they're
yeah,
not they're not Nephilim or anything like that,
no, but they battled
as far
against
as we
the
know.
Nephilims to kill them all anyway.
Yeah, these guys would fight, and there was just nonstop war. I mean, bits and pieces of peace here and there, but they were like nonstop war going on with all these people against each other, kind of like everywhere. But
Hmm.
so sometimes these Moabites would get taken over by the Og of Bashan, and these giant clans would fight against the Edomites and the Moabites and the Ammonites. You know what I mean? So these
Yeah,
guys were kind of probably sticking together to fight against the Nephilim descendants, the giant tribes. So they had an alliance, even though they're kind of separate tribes. They kind of had an alliance, and the Midianites are south of this. But they were obviously around this area at the time as well. There was five kings, right? The five kings, and there's different smaller kingdoms working together.
Yeah.
And so these guys were all related to Abraham, actually. So
So they were just
uh,
outside the covenant, though, right?
yeah, they're not Israelites. Yeah, yeah. Um, so they, so they can kind of take them back in. Um, And
Hmm.
you camp outside the camp 7 days. Whoever has killed any person, whoever has touched any slain, purify yourselves, you and your captives on the third day and on the seventh day. That's the purity laws. They were defiled through killing someone. You're kind of unclean, so they have to stay outside the camp, which we read about. And you shall purify for yourselves every garment and every article of leather in all the work of goat's hair and all articles of wood. Then it's all unclean now because there's bloodshed, right? People have been killed. Then Eleazar the priest said to the man of war who had gone to battle, "This is the statute of the law which Yahweh has commanded Moses. Um, Only the gold and the silver, the bronze, the iron, the tin, and the lead, everything that can stand the fire, you shall pass through the fire, and it shall be clean, but it shall be purified with water for impurity. But whatever cannot stand the fire, you shall pass through the water. And you shall wash your clothes on the seventh day and be clean, and afterward you may enter the camp." But if you think about it, though, like, see, here's the thing about, these wars
Hmm.
is that basically everyone is, see, when you bring in the women, right, the virgins into your camp, that's kind of a part of the victory is that you gain more assets. If
Yeah.
you think about these women would be an asset to their community.
They do that now
So,
in wars. Um, like all the Middle East, Boko Haram or whatever they did. Um, they would capture all the women.
and the
And,
women kind of need like new men in their lives because all their men have been killed. There's no more men in our
yeah.
country.
But what
What are we
else is
going to do?
happening in these weird places is that they were doing genocide of women babies. So then there were a lot more men. And then as they grew up, they had no wives. And they would get angry and, they would start raiding other places to steal wives, basically. Uh, but especially like in war territory in Africa, they still do that. They'll go to villages, kill all the men, and take their women. Or girls, actually. They'll just kidnap all the girls, schoolgirls, and make them
Yeah,
their wives.
yeah, yeah. And also, if you think about it, like think about the flood, right? I mean, think about the body count of the flood of Genesis.
Yeah,
So it's like, because, it was justice, right? Even though it's pretty violent,
yeah,
uh, this kind of disobedience results in capital punishment. Essentially, it's the judgment. It's almost like the end. What's waiting for there's going to be a great end times judgment in the future, but sometimes it happens immediately throughout history, like
yeah.
Sodom and
In those
Gomorrah and the
days,
flood.
yeah, because God took immediate judgment back then. I mean,
Yeah,
even if it's 1,000 years or four
which is
hundred
what
years,
here
yeah,
Sodom and Gomorrah was burned to the
that
ground.
day, yeah,
So that's is what happening. This is like a Sodom and Gomorrah type thing happening right here.
right. It's
So,
only
so
after
yeah.
Jesus that the judgment is delayed until the very end now. Not like it was
Mm.
before where
Yeah.
he's talking to them in real time. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. So if you think, oh, it's so mean, they're killing all these people. Well, God killed everyone in the flood except eight people. So here's the thing. There's two types of Christians, really. It's like there are those who say, oh, why doesn't what God is so mean? Why doesn't he save everybody? And then there's people who say, God is so gracious. Why does he save anybody?
yeah, it's
Why does
exact
God save
opposite.
anybody at all? It's
Right.
not like we deserve it.
Well, we don't deserve it, but we made an agreement, right? Like, okay, we'll join your camp. And he kind of gave us the huge gift of everlasting life, which does anybody even realize what that is? I mean, It's not like, okay, you get the idea like, oh yeah, we're gonna live forever. But I mean, do you really understand what it means to live forever in any sort of existence and then be able not to have sin and death involved in it, not to have evil, and just be continually doing like what are you gonna be doing for an eternity? So it has to be something really tremendous, like we just don't understand, you know? And I think that that's the gift that I don't know why anybody would give that up. I just don't get it. Like, hey, that's a free gift. He's not even asking you to do anything, but just join his kingdom.
Well, it's because it's off in the future. People like the immediate
Yeah,
gratification.
which is what all these idols do. They give you immediate.
And you get that, money,
Yeah,
sex, fame,
yeah,
you get the immediate gratification right here, right now in this life, even though
yeah,
we're all dying.
yeah. Yeah, they rather take the immediate, but God is saying just be patient and he's giving you whatever time that you have. And
That's
then
kind of how
it
Satan
really
seduces,
begins.
yeah. And that's how Satan seduces us too. He's like,
Yeah,
I'll give you the kingdom right now. That was
right.
the temptation of Jesus, right?
Yeah,
Hey, I'll
yeah,
make you king of the world right now,
yeah.
you know?
And
And
that was, I also want to do a movie about that too. I actually have it in my mind to do it. That if he had, the fact that Jesus resisted that whole thing of immediate gratification of having the whole world, he essentially inherited way more than what even Satan even offered. He inherited the entire universe and then he shared that inheritance with us. So like,
yeah.
I don't know, that whole thing is it's like I think it's an understated story, but it's so crucial like
And
that.
he quoted Deuteronomy each time, by the way. When he
Oh,
responded to Satan, he quoted
yeah.
Deuteronomy.
Oh, which I'm excited to read then because
Yeah.
I don't remember that part.
Anyway, let's keep going.
Yeah.
Actually, these three chapters are quite long. We might
Yeah,
only finish two. I'm okay if we only finish two today because
that's
the
fine.
final three chapters are not that long.
Okay. That's
But
fine.
we'll see how it goes.
All right.
All right, division of the loot. Okay, so then Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "You and Eleazar the priest and the heads of the fathers' households of the congregation take account of the loot that was captured, both of man and of animal." So they totally destroyed. They wiped these people off. No, they didn't destroy all the Midianites, but these people they fought against, they wiped them off the face of the earth essentially and took all their stuff.
Yeah.
Right? You and Eleazar the priest and the heads of the fathers' households of the congregation. I think, did I read that? Take account of the loot that was captured, both of man and of animal. Now, it sounds like it's only the virgins, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they got a bunch of animals. And divide the loot between the warriors who went out to battle and all the congregation.
Mm-hmm.
So they got all this stuff and they're going to divide it up amongst everybody.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Braveheart. Just go get it. They did it.
It's kind of like the Native Americans do today with the casino money. They divide it
Oh
throughout the
yeah,
whole
yeah.
clan, tribe,
Right.
whatever. And you shall exact a levy for Yahweh from the men of war who went out to battle. So the men, the warriors, are going to take their cut, but from that they're going to give 1 in 500 who went out to battle, 1 in 500 of the persons and of the cattle and of the donkeys and of the sheep. Take it from their half and give it. So half of it goes. I think how this is a bit mathematical here, so it's too early for me to be doing math. Take it from their half and give it to Eleazar the priest as a contribution to Yahweh. Okay, so they're kind of, it's kind of like a tithe or something, right?
Yeah.
And from the sons of Israel's half, the sons of Israel's half, the congregation's half. So it sounds like the warriors get half, the congregation gets half, but then from that you take a little bit of it. Everybody gives a little piece to the priest. You shall take one drawn out of every 50 of the persons, of the cattle, of the donkeys, and of the sheep. It comes out to 10%, I think, at the end. From all the animals, give them to the Levites who keep charge of the tabernacle of Yahweh. Moses and Eleazar the priest did just as Yahweh had commanded Moses. Now the loot that remained from the plunder which the men of war had plundered was six. Sorry,
See,
I
that
couldn't
can't
help
be
but
all.
laugh.
Yeah.
675,000 sheep. I'm not sure if
Yep.
there's enough sheep there.
I
I mean, I don't know where
think
all the sheep were living here, to be honest, but hey, I'm not a sheep herder, so I don't know much about sheep, but
there's a lot of sheep.
it's a lot of sheep for this little piece of land. But hey,
Well,
what
it's
do I
not that
know?
little. I mean,
But
we
you know
have
what the word
millions of
is.
people there.
You
So,
know what the word is. What verse is this here? It's verse 32. Oh, look at it's our good friend. My favorite word, Elef,
uh,
which is used, Elephim, Elef, Elef. Look at so when you see three zeros, here's the thing. Hebrew, they used words to say the numbers, right? They don't have the little numbers like we have now. So it was words. And as we see, 675,000 sheep. I'm Elef, that's the same word right here. Cattle
okay,
herd.
but it can mean 1,000 and a very
Yeah,
large number.
sometimes it's like the least
So,
used
okay, that's just a
definite.
definition, right? It doesn't say how much it
I
has
know
to
we
be.
talked about it. I'm just you don't have to
Yeah.
argue about it, but
We're
yeah,
gonna
yeah. So
argue
you
about it
you
every
would
time
think
you see a
because
number.
for you this is
600,000,
675,000 sheep, but just keep
okay.
in mind the Hebrew does say 675 elef
Okay.
sheep. Six. So what I think it means, just so people know, 675 herds of sheep. How many in a herd? We don't know.
1,000.
Maybe a dozen, maybe more than that. I don't know. 675 herds of sheep, 72 LF or herds of cattle, because it's a collective noun, like a group of soldiers, a herd of animals. I'm just
Okay.
saying, don't agree.
All
You don't
right.
have to agree with me about anything. Just let me state my case.
All right. You made your
It
case. It's
makes sense
all
to
Ella.
me. It makes
I
sense
think
to
your
me. But
name
hey,
should have been Ella. You should
what
have
do I
kept it
know? I
Ella.
know nothing, but it just happens to end with three zeros. So precisely, exactly 675,000 sheep, no more, no less, exactly, precisely
Do you think
72,000 cattle.
LF.com is available? I think there
This
should
is
be.
one of those things that is unsolved. It's an unsolved mystery of the Bible, and I'm interested in these things. So
I
that
understand.
God has given me the job of figuring out these very
Go right
large
ahead.
numbers that have these large numbers, by the way, have caused people to not believe in the Bible. So I'm just trying to
Why?
solve that
Because God
problem,
can't
which
take care of big numbers? I mean, I think it's more majestic that he actually took care of like 2 million plus people and got them out of Egypt than like 30,000 people.
I'm just reading what it says
I know. Well, no, you're
in Hebrew.
applying a shorter
In
number
Hebrew,
to Aleph than I am because Aleph also
I
means
know that's.
1,000.
I'm just saying that's a lot of sheep
Yeah. Okay,
and
well,
72,000 cattle,
doesn't
61,000
that also demonstrate
donkeys.
a lot of people were living there if in fact it was 675,000 sheep?
Well, that's the thing. If you think all these numbers mean 1,000, then all the numbers are big.
No, no, I get
If you
that. But I'm
you know
saying
what I mean.
if you think the number is correct for the amount of herd, doesn't that reflect accurately the amount of people
Well,
needed
this
to
whole
take care of
area is
all
the
of them?
size of Vermont. All right, right here, this
That
whole
doesn't
area
matter.
on
Vermont,
this map, the size
you
of
know how many
Vermont.
people live in New York City? Millions. And
Yeah,
that's a
this
tiny,
is
tiny
like
space.
desert. This is like mountains and desert and wilderness,
Do you
and
know
this
how
is
many people live
3,000
there
years
now?
ago. You think this was like Manhattan 3,000 years ago?
Yes, because there were a lot of people then, and you don't think all
I
those
guess
people
so.
live there now?
Hey,
What
I
about now?
obviously now there's 6 million people in the country they call Israel. Six
That's just
million.
Israel, but not the whole region. You're talking,
If you count everyone else, then there's 7 million.
no, whatever.
Anyway, okay. Anyway, I'm just saying, hey,
I got it.
675,000 sheep. It must have taken them a while to count all those sheep. But
Well, God did.
anyway,
Yeah.
and of human beings, of the women who had not known man intimately, all the persons were there's the 32,000 virgins, which is impossible
Today, maybe.
anywhere, anytime. 32,000
Yeah.
virgins. So they killed everyone. So they killed what, 1 million people? I mean, how
Yeah.
many? How many people did they kill? But these are the survivors. They killed all the men, all the boys,
Yeah,
and
right.
all the whoring women, and you're
Yeah,
left with.
I
So
think he
that was
gave a
like that
number.
must have been like a million, 500,000 or
Yeah,
whatever.
sure.
I mean,
Okay. So they killed 500,000 when there's 600,000
so
fighting men.
12,000. So if you think there's 1,000 in each military unit, that's 12,000 people went out to battle.
Well,
I'm
until
just
you
saying.
solve this,
Precisely 32,000. Is that was it 32,003 and they just rounded it down? How
they
does it work?
rounded. They could have been,
Oh, how could that's not possible?
why?
Because that's not what it says.
What does it say?
They rounded it off, do you think?
I don't know. I'm saying that they
I
could have,
don't know either.
but
I just
because
think
it's,
it means 32 groups of people.
all right, it's 32 women that they managed to
No, no,
find.
no, not 32 women, 32
Yeah,
groups
32
of
times
women.
12, whatever.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Basically, if you, not my version, but this version I'm talking about, just take off the last two zeros, you get much closer to the real number,
All
in
right,
my opinion. In my opinion.
320 virginal women.
In my well thought out, well researched opinion, which means nothing
Okay.
apparently
But
in this
then
world.
mine is also well thought out, well researched opinion based on exactly what it says in the Bible because it's God's
Yeah,
word.
based on reading this.
Well, that's all we're required to do now. We're required to trust him.
Don't think.
All right. Well,
Don't think.
I don't know to think.
Christians cannot think.
Well, not in changing the context.
All
I
right.
can't. I'm not
No,
allowed
this is
to.
content. This is military content. Anyway, we've talked about that enough. We
Yeah, yeah,
disagree
yeah.
fundamentally,
Okay. All
but
right.
we
For
can each
this
share our
chapter, I'll
view.
just go
People can
with
decide.
your LF units just to finish
No,
this.
you don't have to do that. Anyway, I'm just because I'm just making sure that minority, it's the minority opinion for sure. So I'm just making sure it gets a little air. That's the whole purpose. That's what I do. I
All
try
right.
to,
Give it your
otherwise,
due.
what's the
Give it your
point?
all. Give it your
Um,
all.
so 32,000 virgins,
320 virgins. I got it.
lots of virgins to go around. Now, a lot of them were probably like too young, right? I mean, I guess the little girls were also spared, like the young girls, and so they would just kind of raise them and wait for them to be old enough to
Yep.
get married later on. And the portion of those who went out to war was as follows: the number of sheep was three, so that's half of this number here, right?
Hmm.
370, whatever, 337,500, half of this. So
Yeah.
that goes to they split it up into half. The levy of Yahweh from the sheep was 675, which if 675
Is
is
10%.
well, it's
What is
one,
that?
I don't know, it's whatever it is, but it's the same
1,000%?
well, one, yeah, it's one in 500. It's one in 1,000 of the total, but so it's one of five. So for every 500, they get one of this number, which
All
turns out
right.
to one in every 1,000 or something. And the cattle were 36,000, from which the levy of Yahweh was 72.
So that's pretty precise.
This one is here, yeah,
So is
because this is
675 and so is
well, like I'm
61.
saying, but this is, there's a theory behind all of this stuff, which we can't get into here. I'll
Well, I
make
think
my own videos on these things. And the
yeah.
donkeys were 30,500, from which the levy. I have a lot of anyway, in the 61.
All right. 61 is pretty
Where'd
precise.
they get to 61?
I think they took a
Not sure.
mathematical calculation. Should we
Well,
do
I'm
some
just
math?
no, 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 no.
Um,
It is the book of Numbers, but I don't think we should do any math. And the human beings were 16,000, from whom, which is the virgins,
yeah.
from whom the levy of Yahweh was 32 persons.
See, that's
So
pretty
the Levites
precise.
get some virgins too, I guess. And Moses gave the levy, which was the contribution to Yahweh, to Eleazar the priest, just as Yahweh had commanded Moses. And for the sons of Israel's half, the congregation, which Moses separated from the men who had gone to war. So these guys didn't go to war, but they still get all the loot, or half, they get half the loot. Congregation's half was 337,500 sheep, 36,000 cattle, 30,500 donkeys, and the human beings were, that's a lot of poop, by the way. Think
Yeah.
about the practical realities of this. Anyway, I'm gonna make a note of that. I didn't think of
Have you
that
ever
before.
seen sheep farms? There's like thousands
Yeah,
of them
yeah.
in one sheep farm.
I know there's a lot of sheep in the world. New Zealand,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
there's a
that's
lot of
covered
sheep.
with sheep. You should ask them.
It is. It is. Yeah. So from the sons of Israel's half, Moses took one drawn out of every 50, both of man and of animals, and gave them to the Levites, who kept the responsibility of the tabernacle of Yahweh, just as Yahweh had commanded Moses. Then the officers who were over the thousands of the army, the commanders of thousands and the commanders of hundreds, came. So it was a military organization, right? Came near to Moses, and they said to Moses, "Your servants have taken a census of men of war who are in our charge, and no man of us is missing." So no one died in these wars, apparently. That's
Hmm.
interesting. That's pretty, and in fact, I think not many Israelites, maybe none. I'd have to double check that, but not many Israelites died in battle. No, there was, I think there was maybe in Numbers 14, but maybe, maybe. But for the most part, the Israelites are getting killed by God for their
Yeah.
disobedience and their treason.
Hmm.
And
So they're
finally, they
pretty good
killed,
warriors then, if they don't die.
if they're loyal to, if they're, yeah, if God sends them out, then God makes sure that they win. But
Hmm.
if they go to fight without God, they lose.
Yeah.
Because they're really, because what it shows is that they are an instrument of God's justice. They
Right.
work for God, right? Kind of just like the angel of God.
Yep.
He just can't go off and do his own thing.
Right.
Whoever that is.
I think all the Christians have a job and they work for God, even without realizing.
Yeah. Yeah. And if we go off and do our own thing,
Then we lose.
we kind of cause more problems, right? So,
Hmm.
yeah. So that's a good point. Yeah. For all of us are working for God and have a job to do
Yep.
in the body of Christ, right? We have a job and it's different. We don't all have the same. I'm here to talk about the LF, obviously.
And I'm here to rebuke it.
despite despite heavy persecution and
Yeah.
idolatry in general.
Yeah.
That's kind of something I'm focused on.
But there are two witnesses here, so I guess God will have to decide that issue.
That's well, yeah.
It's
God
okay.
knows that I'm
Yeah.
right. No.
You can be right. I can be wrong. I have no problem with that. But
So we
my only contention is that if God gave us an English word to read and understand and follow and devote our lives to, then it has to
why do
be
they keep
accurate.
revising it? What how come the first 10 English Bibles were wrong and then finally the KJV came along and was right,
I
even though
don't
the
know. I mean,
translators say
if God,
it's not right?
if God's the
Anyway,
director, he's going to pick whatever and whoever to write his perfect word. So who am I to judge about any of that?
the autographs. All right. So we have brought near as an offering to Yahweh, which each man found, articles of gold, armlets and bracelets, signet rings, earrings, and necklaces to make atonement for ourselves before Yahweh. Well, that's interesting. So now we've got some atonement happening, an
Hmm.
offering to Yahweh, right? They're offering the loot,
Yeah.
um, these valuables. And remember, like when they left Egypt, they took a bunch of stuff with them as well.
Yeah. They were
Um,
told to take all that too.
And they used a lot of that to build the tabernacle and because
Yeah.
they had a lot of gold and this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, and Moses and Eleazar the priest took the gold from them, all kinds of crafted articles, and all the gold from the contribution offering which they raised up in offering to Yahweh from the commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds was 16,750 shekels.
That's pretty precise. Even the shekels are less.
Yeah. Yeah, but I have a theory about that, but I
Oh,
won't
okay.
even bother talking about it.
No, no.
The men of war had taken plunder, every man for himself. So Moses and Eleazar the priest took the gold from the commanders of thousands and hundreds, and they brought it to the tent of meeting as a memorial for the sons of Israel before Yahweh. Wow, so that's a long chapter. Um,
Yeah. What do we learn from that? That they looted and pillaged and got their spoils?
yeah, well, if you think about like, obviously today we're not engaged in physical violence, the church, uh, but we still have the spiritual warfare and like in what is that Ephesians 6 is it the
Yeah.
arm yourself, but that's actually really taken from Isaiah actually. But anyway, arm yourself with the
But it is pretty
armor.
interesting is that the followers of God, if you kind of analyze it towards like a Christian follower, the follower of Christ versus follower of Yahweh, Yahweh made them participate in war, which, uh, you know how you see Christians today, like they're so opposed to anything negative or violent, and like everything is sugar coated. But here, there's no sugar coating. Like, all right, just go conquer and take what you want. Like that would happen today. Ours, like our war now is all spiritual, is not physical any longer. Like to defeat, we still have enemies. They had enemies. We have enemies. That hasn't changed. Nothing has changed except the battle is now spiritual versus physical. Don't you
Well,
think?
even back then, I think is spiritual as well because it's about
Oh
idolatry
yeah,
and
right.
loyalty to different supernatural beings, right?
Yep.
The fallen angels came as gods, and people were amazed by them, and then they kind of, you know, taught people how to do all kinds of stuff and gave them immediate gratification in exchange
Yep.
for
Except,
worship. But they enslaved humanity. See, God actually sets us free. If we
yeah,
serve Him, we have a lot more freedom. But if you
right.
serve the demons now rule over us. They are the images that
Yeah.
we worship. We lose the ability to be the image of God, and then we have to serve these other images. They become the images of the gods, the small g gods. And I see
Yeah,
it when I
I
go to these
think the
temples.
world would have looked a lot different if we all stayed in the image of God versus exchanging it for
We're
the
slaves. We're
image.
slaves in Egypt.
Yeah.
We became slaves in Egypt. So Jesus came to set people free,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And they killed him.
Yeah. Well, we killed him because we not knew or we didn't know what we knew or whatever. All right, so we're doing chapter 32. Reuben and Gad possesses Gilead. So what is this story about? Oh, they wanted their own land, I guess. They didn't want to go in the promised land.
Yeah, so basically, they just got all this livestock and stuff, and it sounds like Reuben and Gad got a lot of livestock, and there is a backstory here, possibly that, but the main point here on this map here, you can see this is the Jordan River, so the Holy Land, or the Promised Land, is west, but these guys want to settle, and they do settle east. So that becomes a bit of an issue because, they're supposed to, all 12 tribes supposed to enter the promised land together, but they don't want to enter. They want to stay here because they have good land for their livestock. It's so anyway, that's the issue. It's Reuben, Gad, and half of the tribe of Manasseh. So
Okay.
it causes a few problems here. So there's always problems, right? Always some drama. These
Yeah,
guys are full of
it's
drama.
full of drama.
It's not
It's
so easy, right?
amazing how many stories we went through already.
It's like, hey, trust God and you'll enter the promised land of milk and honey. It's
Yeah,
pretty simple, really, but yet they made it very complicated.
they did. Well, that's why they were out there for so many years.
40 years. They could have
Yeah,
gotten there in 40
three
days.
days. Yeah.
All
Or maybe
right.
our
So
story could have been similar too, but who knows?
it was Gilead. So, all right. So now the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad had an exceedingly large number of livestock, and they saw the land of Jazer. and the land of Gilead, that it was indeed a place suitable for livestock. Very similar to Lot, right? In Genesis, he says something similar. He goes to Sodom or outside of there. So the sons of Gad and the sons of Reuben came and spoke to Moses and to Eleazar the priest and to the leaders of the congregation, saying, Atarot, Dibon, Yazer, Nimrah, Hezbon, what was that? El,
Elia? Yeah.
Allah, that's
Yeah.
hard.
Elia. Elia.
Sabam,
Seba.
uh,
Nebu.
Nebo, and Beon, the land which Yahweh struck before the congregation of Israel is a land for livestock, and your servants have livestock. So remember, this concept of land is so important, right? It's like you got the God and the land and the people. That's a kingdom, right?
Yeah.
The kingdom of God. But these guys are kind of there's a bit of a dilemma here. They're kind of doing their own thing now. They've gone off on their own plan. It's like, hey, we like this land here. God promised us that land, but we want this land because of our livestock. So you know, they're kind of putting their material needs first. And they said, if we have found favor in your sight, let this land be given to your servants as a possession. Do not take us across the Jordan. Big problem. That's what the first generation did. They didn't want to go to the promised land. They wanted to go back to Egypt, but
Yeah.
these guys want to stay here. Now, there is a backstory that it's possible because these guys are related to Abraham anyway.
Yeah.
Both right, the Moabites and the Israelites, and it's possible that some people in their tribes did live there before, like during the time of Egypt or before that. Like there is actually. I mean, I don't have all the verses lined up, but there is some evidence showing that they had ancestors who were already living there, and they may have in their tribes. These two tribes and Manasseh, they increased a lot in people suddenly. So it's
Hmm.
possible it's possible that they had people there already that
Yeah.
were not in Egypt, but they were like from that time period, they were kind of living there the whole time.
Hmm.
So that's partly that could possibly explain another reason they wanted to live there as well, is
But
that they had
doesn't this
ancestors living there.
chapter answer why they wanted to stay?
It talks about the livestock. It doesn't
Hmm.
talk about the other things, but there are some clues in other places. So anyway, just keep that in mind. I'm not going to make that case necessarily or explain it in too much detail now, but
All right.
because if you think about it, it's not a big piece of land, and they had Abraham was up here, right? There's their ancestors go back to this very same land anyway. So most of them went. The Israelites went to Egypt, but there were some other people that did not.
Hmm.
These Moabite, these guys, the descendants of Abraham, did not go to Egypt. So there's people from different tribes kind of scattered all over. But Moses, so do not take us across the Jordan, right? Big problem but Moses said to the sons of Gad and to the sons of Reuben, shall your brothers go to war while you yourselves sit here, right? They just lost two and a half tribes. They'll talk about Manasseh in a minute, but two and a half tribes, basically, they're losing two and a half tribes worth of soldiers to go defeat the Canaanites, right? It's a big problem.
Hmm.
They're supposed to stick together.
Yeah.
So now it's almost an act of treason, actually. Now, why are you discouraging the sons of Israel from crossing over into the land which Yahweh has given them? This is what your fathers did when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to see the land. That's those spies in Numbers
Yeah.
13, right? They were like,
Right.
hey, that's a bad land. We don't want to go into that land. It's no
Yeah.
good. They were kind of, so it's this very similar kind of problem. And what happened is, remember at the end of,
They
in
got
Numbers
killed.
14, they got killed
Yeah. Did
by
they?
who?
God?
Yes.
Well,
There
it
was the
wasn't.
wrath of God. Oh, look at this. Yahweh's anger again. Yahweh's angry a lot with these people.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And
He's actually doing
He's
physical
got a
things right
plan.
now.
This is like the king. Think of God as like the king, right?
Yeah.
It's just a, you know, the king says, "Go do this, and we're going to set up this kingdom in this land, and it's going
Doesn't
to be
it
great."
make him more real that he has all these same emotions like we would?
Well, it's maybe not so much emotional either, though. That's kind of a way to, it's like it's his anger, but it's also because he's a God of justice. Justice must be done.
Yeah, he's a
It's not
righteous
just, oh, I'm
anger.
angry. I can't control my rage. I just
No,
lash
no,
out in
no.
anger uncontrollably. It's like
Yeah.
you guys have committed treason.
Yep.
The army is supposed to go here, and then half of these soldiers are like, no, we don't want to go. What would happen in the U.S. Army if that happened? They'd be put in what do you call that? Whatever they call
Um,
that. You know what I mean? They'd be guilty of treason,
yeah, I mean,
court-martialed.
they
They'd
were
be court-martialed.
inciting, yeah. But I
All
think
right, so
God does have like emotions too.
yes, yes,
Deal with
yes,
them. Yeah.
yes, yes. And it maybe hurts his feelings. Think about it, I
I think,
mean,
yeah, he is
it
feeling it.
doesn't necessarily say that, but I think yeah, God has feelings, and you know,
But he was
if
aggrieved
you
once, so
if you abandon God, maybe he feels sad
I'm
sometimes.
sure he
Why
does.
not? Maybe that's not part
Well,
of standard theology. I don't know, but anyway,
well,
why
I
wouldn't
mean,
he have
isn't
emotion?
caring and loving part of that where you would grieve if something,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Otherwise, you're
Husband
not
and
in
wife
love.
analogy. There's a
Yeah.
husband and wife analogy throughout the whole Bible.
Yeah.
There's
27. Yeah.
feelings, there's love, there's feelings
And
involved, and then you
betrayal.
get hurt. You get hurt as well when somebody when the people you love turn against you. That hurts,
Yeah.
but
Book
you
of
sometimes
Isaiah.
makes you angry as well.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Indeed. They,
indeed, they went up to the valley of Eshcol and saw the land, and they discouraged the sons of Israel, so that they did not go into the land which Yahweh had given them. He's talking about the spies still. So Yahweh's anger burned in that day, and he swore an oath, saying, none of the men who came up from Egypt from 20 years old and upwards shall see the land which I swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, for they did not follow me fully, except Caleb the son of Jephunneh, and the Kenizzite, and Joshua the son of Nun, for they have followed Yahweh fully. So Yahweh's anger burned against Israel, and he made them wander in the wilderness 40 years, until the entire generation of those who had done evil in the sight of Yahweh was brought to an end. So he's worried the same thing is going to happen,
mhm.
right? Because these two and a half tribes don't want to go in. None of us can go in now.
Right.
They're worried, oh no, we're going to have to wait another 40 years till this generation dies out or something.
Mhm.
Because they're not in the land yet. They don't know if they're going to
Yeah.
get there now. And now let me just show something really interesting here. If I can do it real quickly. Joshua Spirit. I'm just going to do a quick search if I can, if this works. Joshua, son of Nun, was filled with the Spirit, right? We kind of talked about this before. See, that's a difference, right? What makes Joshua different? He's filled with the Spirit,
Yeah.
right? And it actually says that a few times. Spirit of whatever. It's so, but, and then look at Caleb as well. Caleb, Spirit.
So they probably had the Holy Spirit in them.
Look at this. But my servant Caleb, because he has had a different spirit and has followed me fully, I will bring into the land. Right?
Yeah.
So
So
yeah, it
they
was the
were
Holy
born
Spirit.
with faith and obedience. Like
Well, I don't
they
know, born
had
that
that
way, but they
spirit.
had maybe not born, but it was given to them later. I don't think they were born that
Yeah.
way, but they
Well,
why
like
is that? I don't know.
John the Baptist was born with the Spirit in the womb.
Was he?
Yeah.
All right. Well, have to be
So they're chosen for something. So they might have
except
had the
Caleb.
Spirit.
Yeah. Yeah, look at this. Here's what makes them different. They followed
Oh,
Yahweh
Yahweh
fully.
fully. Yeah.
And that's kind of similar to Galatians. It's about inheritance, right? Inheriting the land promised to Abraham,
Yeah.
the inheritance. So, and you need to have the Spirit to inherit the land. Those with the Spirit are the sons of Abraham. and inherit they can inherit the land. Where you don't inherit the land through circumcision, because everyone in the first generation, they were all circumcised, they all had the tassels, they didn't eat pork. They did not
Yeah,
inherit the land. What's different? They didn't have the Spirit.
but I wonder here if they followed Yahweh fully because of the Spirit, the Holy Spirit,
Because of the
or
Spirit.
the
Yeah,
Spirit
yeah,
of God,
absolutely.
or
We can't do it
because,
on our own.
yeah,
We can't do it without the Spirit.
right. So
Because
they had to have been
the
given the
flesh
Spirit
is,
then,
yeah, the flesh is our problem.
right.
We're enslaved to idolatry and sin in the flesh, but in the Spirit, we're set free to be able to follow God.
Hmm.
Anyway, something like that. But there's something special about these two guys, right? And it's the Spirit. We're told in the Bible. It's
Yeah,
not
but
that they tried a
I
little
guess,
harder. It's not like they had extra long tassels or,
but I think God must have had to give them the Spirit, right? They
yeah,
had
yeah,
to,
for sure. Yeah, yeah. You can't just conjure it up yourself. God
right.
gave them the Spirit. It's the gift of the Spirit, for sure.
Yeah,
Same with us. God
yeah.
chooses, really. Anyway, God pours out the Spirit, you know.
So why do we need a different way to get the Holy Spirit if God was able to give them the Spirit?
Well, he gave just a few people back then.
Yeah, so why couldn't he do that with all the
The Spirit
people?
came on Jesus at his baptism, and then Jesus ascended to heaven after the cross, and Jesus poured it out. It's really the presence of Jesus is in the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. Oh,
So it's
it's
just
maybe slightly
something
different.
happened. So he had to live as a human being and then ascend to heaven, and that whole thing. And he had, the whole Jesus, everything he did had to happen for the Holy Spirit to be poured out at this massive level like it is now.
Okay, I guess we'll have to explore that a little bit more later.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's kind of
Because
New
it comes
Testament.
up in different ways throughout the whole Bible.
But there are examples of people who had the Spirit in the Old Testament, but it's
Yeah,
limited, very limited. The prophets had it,
right. And these guys had it.
Kings, David, Moses,
Hmm.
Noah, I would assume, Enoch, they had the Holy Spirit. That's the thing. That's what made them different. But it was a very limited number of people. So,
But they also
yeah.
all responded to God as normal human beings. Like they were the friend of God. Like Abraham was a friend of God, so was Noah. So I'm not sure if it's just because of the Holy Spirit. I think it has a little bit more of the person who is in relationship with God.
Well,
We're
something to think
supposed to be.
about. But yeah, anyway,
All
we
right.
can ponder that
Yeah.
for years to come. Some of these things are not easy to explain, and
Uh,
I'm kind of focused, like I'm totally focused on the
I
book of
get.
Numbers. So
All
if
right.
we anyway, so Yahweh's anger burned against Israel. Wait, it made them wander in the wilderness 40 years until the entire generation of those who had done evil in the sight of Yahweh was brought to an end. Now behold, you have risen up in your father's place, a brood of sinful men. Now this is the second generation, right? He's saying you guys are doing the same thing the first generation did. A brood of sinful men. Like remember a brood of vipers, right? Jesus
Yeah.
said to the a brood of what a great little phrase that is right there. A
Mhm.
brood of sinful men to add still more to the burning anger of Yahweh against Israel.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is, right? That's Moses's response. It
Yeah.
makes sense, right? For if you turn away from following him, he will once more abandon them in the wilderness, meaning all the Israelites, you know, and
Yeah.
you will destroy all these people. So it's really putting they're all in danger of being destroyed by God because all of them have to go into the promised land, and now some of them don't want to go, so they're all going to be destroyed. God's plan is in jeopardy, or they're rebelling against God's plan as they do the whole
Yeah, I think they're
time.
rebelling. And
They are rebelling. Yeah.
this is like the typology of what is at the end times anyway. Like people choose not to be with God and they rebelled. Because even God said, like, even after they were known, they knew, they still hated God and were cursing him at the end. So
Yeah.
they're making these
Yeah.
decisions.
Well, yeah, they don't have the spirit. Then because they're enslaved to idolatry.
Yeah.
It's the it's it's the worshiping the image of the beast, just in a general sense, without getting specific on the mark of
Oh,
the
yeah.
beast, and without going down that rabbit hole. There's a
Mhm.
general theme of idolatry. The mark of the beast is the result of idolatry. Worshiping the image of the beast is the result of idolatry, right? Just
Yeah. I also think the mark of the beast is going to be in the image of Satan somehow.
well, without getting too specific, yeah, I don't want to go down that. You could
Yeah.
talk a
All right.
whole
Well,
show.
that's
I have a very different. I have a more we're not talking about Revelation right now, but
no. I got to get through all
everyone,
this
no one,
before.
yeah, no one agrees with. I think I may talk about it in my next video. Like I made a video and I have to edit it. I talk about all
Okay.
kinds of weird stuff. Then they came near to him and said, "We will build here sheepfolds for our livestock and cities for our little ones, but we ourselves will be armed, ready to go before the sons of Israel until we have brought them to their place, and our little ones live in the fortified cities because of the inhabitants of the land. We will not return to our homes until every one of the sons of Israel has possessed his inheritance." Basically, they're saying, well, they say it
And,
down here. For we will not have an inheritance with them on the other side of the Jordan and beyond, because our inheritance has fallen to us on this side of the Jordan east,
mhm.
which again, they're the
So
guys in
they
the orange
decided
here.
that, though. God
They
didn't
did.
decide that.
So Moses said to them, "If you will do this, if you will arm yourselves before Yahweh for the war, and all of your armed men cross over the Jordan before Yahweh until he has dispossessed his enemies from before him, and the land is subdued before Yahweh, then afterward you shall return and be free of obligation toward Yahweh and toward Israel. And this land shall be yours for a possession before Yahweh. But if you will not do so, behold, you have sinned against Yahweh, and be sure your sin will find you out. Build for yourselves cities for your little ones, and sheepfolds for your sheep, and do what you have promised." And the sons of Gad and the sons of Reuben spoke to Moses, saying, "Your servants will do just as my Lord commands. Our little ones, our wives, our livestock, and all our cattle shall remain there in the cities of Gilead. But your servants, everyone who is armed for war, will cross over in the presence of Yahweh to battle, just as my Lord says." So basically, they promised to go help them conquer this land,
Yep.
but then they're going to go back and live here.
Yeah.
So now this map here is now Numbers 34, which is I guess next week we'll probably talk about that. They do talk about the boundaries a bit. So the green part in Numbers 34, they mention the boundaries go way up there. And then the Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh are over here, half of Manasseh. And then this purple line is boundaries of the land allotted to the Israelite tribes by Joshua. That happens later in the book of Joshua. The actual boundaries, something like this. Some of these maps you have to take with a grain of salt, but they do their
Yeah.
best. But we don't, some places, sometimes we just don't know exactly. But, you know, so anyway, it's, it's not exactly, it
Yep.
doesn't line up exactly. Um, So Moses gave a command concerning them to Eleazar the priest and to Joshua the son of Nun and to the heads of the fathers' households of the tribes of the sons of Israel. And Moses said to them, "If the sons of Gad and the sons of Reuben, everyone who is armed for battle, will cross with you over the Jordan in the presence of Yahweh, and the land is subdued before you, then you shall give them the land of Gilead for a possession. But if they will not cross over with you armed, they shall have possessions among you in the land of Canaan." And the sons of Gad and the sons of Reuben answered, saying, "As Yahweh has said to your servants, so we will do. We will cross over armed in the presence of Yahweh into the land of Canaan, and the possession of our inheritance shall remain with us across the Jordan." Kind of sounds like a vow. so they
Hmm.
better do it. And it seems like it's kind of accepted, maybe because they are actually the soldiers are crossing over the Jordan.
Yeah.
So they do accept this plan, but I'll show you in a minute. There is maybe, it's not exactly perfect. There is a bit of, they do pay the price later on, actually. So Moses gave to them, to the sons of Gad and to the sons of Reuben. And now, okay, the half tribe of Joseph's son Manasseh, the kingdom
Mhm.
of Sihon, the king of the Amorites, which they defeated these guys already, and the kingdom of Og, the king of Bashan. And these guys were like giants, right?
Yeah.
In the land with its cities, with their territories, the cities of the surrounding land. And the sons of Gad built Dibon and Atarot and Aroer and Atrot, Shofan and Yazer and Yogbaha. They got some good names there.
I
And Beth
know.
Nimrah and Beth Haran as fortified cities and sheepfolds for the sheep. And the sons of Reuben built Heshbon and Eleahah and Kiriathaim and Nebo and Baal-Maon, their names being changed, and Sibmah, and they gave other names to the cities which they built. These names may have been named after, Baal and these guys, right? Named after the gods, so they changed their names,
Yeah.
possibly. Yeah, it
I
looks
think
like it.
all regions end up naming their children according to the gods that they worship. Um,
Hmm.
so that's one way to kind of see who ended up where and what they actually
Yeah,
worship by their names. Do you realize that a lot of the American names are New Testament names? Like to me,
mine
that
is.
looks like uh, they all accepted the new covenant and they were naming their kids Mark, John, Luke, whatever.
Well, I suppose you want to. It's a way to try to bless the child, probably.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that also shows that entire lineage of the people who had all those names.
Yeah,
They
just like you name.
accepted,
Yeah, yeah. You'll name your kid after Baal if you're a Baal worshiper
yeah,
or whatever. Yeah, makes
right.
sense. Kind of shows you're in that clan as well. You're part of this group, and
Yeah, like
yeah,
let's say like an Indian name Lakshmi, which means prosperity or something. There is a goddess named that. So
mm,
you'll see a lot of these names, or even like Muhammad, like Muslims, they name their
yeah,
children Muhammad, whatever. So they all name their kids according to who they honor and worship. So in today's environment, we can figure out where some of these tribes went. Um,
yeah. Like the tribe of Dan probably went up to Northern Europe, right? All the Danube River, Denmark,
yeah,
all these
right,
kind of
right,
things,
yeah,
and they had the ships, the Vikings,
yeah.
ship people. Yeah. Anyway, okay. So, and the sons of Machir, the sons of Manasseh, went to Gilead and took it and dispossessed the Amorites who were in it, right? Which is kind of this whole, I don't know if is Gilead even on the map there. I think it's the whole region more or less. Oh, here it is right here, Gilead, right? So, the Amorites. So Moses gave Gilead to Machir, the son of Manasseh, and he lived in it. Um, and Manasseh was actually quite a huge tribe uh, at this point. And Yair, the son of Manasseh, went and took its towns and called them Havot Yair, probably Yair. And Nobah went and took Kenat and its towns and called it Nobah after his own name.
Wow,
So,
it's a long, hard name genealogy there.
yeah.
All right, so we could stop here since we covered the first two chapters. And then,
I have a little connection though to see what it's
yeah.
possible that. So remember, it's possible that they were kind of punished later on. If I can find that verse, which there it is. All right, so this is in 1 Chronicles 5. So this is like this is later on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the God of Israel stirred up the spirit of Pul, king of Assyria, and he took them away into exile, namely Reubenites, right? The Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh, and the
Yeah.
half tribe of Manasseh. These three tribes we just read about who wanted to
Yeah.
stay on the east, they were the first guys to be exiled, brought them to Halah, these places here to this day. Whenever this Chronicles was written, they
Mm-hmm.
these three exact tribes were the first were the ones to be uh,
So where did
captured.
they end up then?
They
Did they
became the
die out?
Gentiles. They became Gentiles.
So it doesn't
And
say.
Gentiles became the northern 10 tribes. That's a whole different conversation, but they vanished, never to be seen again.
Mhm.
Although it says they went here, but really they never came back. Although that's another reason, that's another part of what happened with
But
the
where is
new covenant.
river?
The new covenant was to restore the 12 tribes, but you had the 10 tribes who vanished and assimilated into the Gentiles. So it's a way of bringing back the northern 10 tribes is to pour out the Spirit on the Gentiles, which now include, somehow the northern 10 tribes as well. So the
So
12
where is
tribes do get
river?
restored.
Where is river of Gozan?
I have no idea.
It's not in the
I don't know
map
if anyone
anywhere.
does. I don't know. I don't know. But they vanished. Anyway, they vanished. So I don't think anyone knows. Maybe you could find these places, maybe not. But
Well, are they not like
I don't know. I don't know.
out of
I'd have to
like
look into
Jordan
it.
somewhere? All right, well, I'll look it
Gozan,
up next time.
Gozan.
Gozan.
Let me see if it,
I mean, it is a river of Gozan, so it must exist somewhere.
Mesopotamia. It's like probably Iraq or Iran, modern day.
Okay, so then
It's in
that's where
Mesopotamia.
they're at. That's where they.
No, no, no. But they to this day doesn't mean now. It meant whenever they wrote this book here. This book wasn't written like last week. This
I
is
know that,
Chronicles probably written in,
but I think it's
fi-
leaving a clue as to where they
yeah.
might
Well,
have.
it is. Obviously, it is. Yeah. I
Yeah.
haven't looked into it,
So I don't know if we
exactly.
can really say they disappeared completely. They just went
I
there.
would say that. Well, that's generally the theory, but that's kind of a different
All
topic.
right.
I'll look into it. But
Okay.
anyway, so it's those three same tribes that were basically the first ones to get kicked out of this land when Assyria, which is up here north, you
Hmm.
know, because there's always, it was the Assyrians and then the Babylonians and Egypt was kind of still around. And then the Greeks came in and the Romans, there's always somebody conquering this area. The Persians,
Yeah,
right? So, but these whole northern, because anyway, then the Israelites start fighting against each other.
as normal.
So, yeah, so they probably had a good run for a while, but then they kind of
Hmm.
it may have been, who knows, it may have been because of this. They had their land and all this stuff, but they couldn't keep it. They couldn't hold on to it, could they?
Well, the ones who didn't go in the promised land, they couldn't hold on to it. But then those that did go into the promised land, they also did wicked things. So then God had to,
Yeah, they got kicked out as well. So they
yeah,
pollute the land. See, idolatry pollutes the land,
right.
contaminates the land. They have to
Well,
get kicked out.
even I think in the New Testament or later, God did say that they defile the land or something like that.
Oh, it
So,
says many times. Yeah.
yeah. So,
Yeah, with their idolatry.
right. So he made a place for them. He kicked out the Nephilims. We talked about that. Cleaned out the area. And but they once they got there, they completely polluted it. And that's why it makes so much sense now when Jesus came into that area in his time, all the stuff that he had to do. Because nowhere up until then was it ever mentioned about demonic warfare or possession or any of that stuff until we got to the New Testament. I'm like, whoa, what happened?
Yeah, you don't
So,
really see demonically possessed people in the Old Testament so much. Maybe
Right.
in the Apocrypha, um, and the Apocrypha is in the King James version, by the way. So I don't know what I don't. I'm not a King James onlyist, but do King James only people also read the Apocrypha? Are those considered divinely inspired scripture? Because nowadays Protestant Bibles do not include the Apocrypha. Some of them do, but some don't. The Catholic Bibles do, I believe.
And where does that come from? I
But
don't even
if you,
know what
but
you're
if
talking
you're,
about.
there were disputed books that were not considered official canon, but they had a kind of a certain classification. Well, we'll
Like
call
what?
them the
Like the Book of
Apocrypha. Like
Enoch?
we read them, we like to read them, but we're not sure if they're divinely inspired or not, something like that. They're kind of this middle ground. But anyway, they're in the King James. I was just looking into this week. Like they're in the King James Bible. So,
Yeah.
but yet I'm not sure if King James only people read the Apocrypha as scripture or because they claim the King James Bible is the only Bible we should read, but that it also includes the Apocrypha. So according to
Are
them,
you
we should
talking
be reading
about
the
like
Apocrypha.
are you
There's
talking
like
about like
12,
the Book
11
of
books.
Enoch that's
No,
mentioned?
no, 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 not the Book of
What
Enoch. The Wisdom of Solomon, Tobit, Baruch, Ezra,
um I've never
Esdras.
even heard of them. So
You've heard of it. You know anyway. That's a different topic, but it's
now
an
I'm
issue
curious
if
to
we're gonna
know.
if you know if you're I'm just you know
But where do
I'm
I
sure
find
a King
those?
James onlyist just look at Apocrypha.
Okay.
The but even in this Bible I'm using right here, they don't have it in there. And even this King James here, it's not in there. I think there's a separate book now in this one. The one that has it would be the if I go here, if I you see the NA NRSV, I think has it. Anyway, some Bible, or it's right here. Let's see if this thing has it. Just look on the left. Maybe, yeah, here it is. So most Old Testaments end here at Malachi. You got Tobit, uh, Judith, Esther,
So
Wisdom of
when we
Solomon,
come,
Sirach, Baruch, all these things. They're actually pretty Maccabees, right? This is where Hanukkah,
so guess what?
Esdras,
We're
Psalm
adding
150,
those books.
Maccabees, Esdras. So there's, I mean, they're in
Maccabees.
the King James version. So I'm not a King James onlyist though. I'm just not. But I'm fine with the Apocrypha. There's certainly, and the thing is, the Apocrypha were, they had those books. So these were written. They call this Second Temple literature. It was written before the New Testament, but the New Testament writers read these books, like Paul and these guys. This was part of their religious literature that they
So
read.
we're gonna read them too.
Christians read it. Christians read it.
I haven't read it. I
And they
don't.
didn't take it out of the canon. It was just never considered to be. And that's a whole other topic too. Canon was just them deciding, hey, what books are the Christians reading and what are we using? What books are basically canonical already? We'll just call them canon because other people were trying. There was a bit of debate over which books they should or should not be reading. But you
I
know,
will read
anyway.
them because if they're there, then let's read them.
Well, they're in the King James Bible in 1611 published, and all Bibles had the Apocrypha until the 1800s. Then they
Okay,
took them out. So of the English Bibles, I mean the English Bibles,
so
and
we'll
it's in the
read them.
Septuagint. The Septuagint, which is the Bible that they read in the first century, the Greek. They read the Bible in Greek for the most part in the first century and quoted it directly. It came from Alexandria. But anyway, so it's kind of a side note.
No, I'm discovering something
Um,
new today.
just a
So
question, because I'm not King James only. I don't know what their view of the Apocrypha is. If I would assume if you're King James onlyist, then you
then
must
they're not
consider
gonna
the
take any.
Apocrypha.
Yeah,
Huh?
they're not gonna add them if they're King James only.
They're already in there
Those are
already.
not in there, so that means they will
No,
not.
they're in the King James, the 1611 up through
Oh,
the
the earlier
1800s.
version, yeah.
No, even in the 1700s, the Apocrypha was in the King James Bible originally, in all
Right.
Bibles up to that point.
But today they're
and
not.
and until the 1800s. Today they're not. But
Yeah.
if you're a King James onlyist, you're looking back at 1611. Even though they're using the 1762 revision,
Well, I
which
think
they
the Holy Spirit can help you decipher whether it's meant to be or not. So I want to read it. So there's no point like to hide stuff. I mean, even the later books in Revelation or wherever, I don't remember where, maybe it was Daniel, that whatever he ate with the honey, the wafer, what did he eat? He ate the word of God and he said it wasn't time to be revealed yet until later on. So it went down bitter. I'm mutilating that completely.
the
But
scroll,
I
yeah, he
think,
ate the scroll.
yeah. So there will be things that'll get revealed over time when it's time. And I think as we now have the Holy Spirit, we should be able to discern easily what those books say, if it's the truth or not. So I'm looking forward to reading it. That's something new that I learned today. I didn't know about those books at all.
You've heard of them. You've probably seen them.
No.
But I think there are some demons in those books.
Oh,
That's
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 great.
that's how I started talking about that topic anyway.
What do you mean there's demon? Like stories about demons or just demonic?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Stories about demons in those books.
oh, then
More than what you see in the Old Testament. The Old
oh,
Testament, you have the God, you have the statues, and you
yeah,
have the sun, the Elohim, the fallen angel. You have all these kind of things. But in terms of like demons bothering people and possibly possessing people, whatnot, there's a lot of weird supernatural stuff in there. But they're quite long. Then you get more history of the Maccabees. You get some of the Jewish history there, it's all good background to help understand the New Testament. In fact, it's
yeah,
very
which is important.
useful stuff to read anyway. So,
Okay.
but it was in the original King James Bible and the I'm blanking the Geneva Bible and all that stuff and the Tyndale
Well, when
Bible.
we get to one of those books that pop up in that particular section where they're supposed to be, maybe we can switch over to the other version and read it
Yeah, yeah.
because I want
It's
to do it continuously so I understand.
yeah. Let's start at
So after
Tobit
Malachi, we're going to be reading that then, which is only three chapters long. Or
4.
four.
Yeah, some of these shorter these minor prophets are. We could probably do a whole book in one episode.
Yeah, which
They're
I'm
three chapters.
excited
Look at
for.
all these are like 3 chapters, 2 or 3
Yeah,
chapters.
that's why I can't wait to get past these really super long ones.
Well, it's interesting. In my own personal study, I just I finished 2 Chronicles, and then
Yeah,
I started reading Esdras, and then I realized that, or Ezra, and then I realized that they were quoting Isaiah, and then it's like there's a huge time jump right here
yeah.
between 2 Chronicles and Ezra, and they start quoting Isaiah, right? And it's
Hmm.
like, well, wait a minute. I haven't read Isaiah.
Yeah,
Isaiah's way down here, but Isaiah and all these prophets, all of them, take place during this time period.
yeah.
You
So
know what I
maybe
mean?
they're
So it's
all
like,
from that time.
why is so my question is why is in the Jewish Bible, it's actually, what comes after 2 Chronicles?
What?
Isaiah.
Oh, I
Isaiah.
see.
It's
So
like,
they,
hey, wait a minute. If I'm reading about this stuff right here, shouldn't I also read the prophets
yeah,
right after that?
right.
And now there's a huge time jump that takes place after the prophets, and they're quoting the prophets, but yet the prophets are way down here. It
Right, but
doesn't
they
make
also
sense.
added these extra books that are like completely different story in a way, but they're still related somehow.
Well,
Because
yeah, then
the
why do I have
Psalms,
to
they
read
added Job,
Job?
Esther.
Why do I have to read all this stuff first, Job and Proverbs, before I read the actual prophets that were prophesying during these events here? And then they're
Yeah,
fulfilled, partially fulfilled here.
right.
Kind of, almost, not really, but you know what I mean? So I was thinking, I maybe after 2 Chronicles, I should start reading Isaiah because
No,
it's talking about this time period.
I know, but
The
there is
order, who decided the
logical.
order of these books?
God did. So we have to trust
Well,
it.
there's different orders. There's different ways to order it. Different Bibles have a different order, actually. We're in the Protestant tradition, like kind of whether you want to be or not. We're in this Protestant tradition. Catholics have a slightly different
Okay,
canon,
then
which
we can jump
but
around
the
after.
Jewish Bible has a different here, let me if I can let me where's the Jewish Bible? I don't even know what that is really, but anyway, if you look at the Hebrew Bibles, they're in a different order. We follow all these names, right? Deuteronomy, these are Greek names, by the way. They're all based on the Greek Septuagint, all these English names that come from Greek. And the Hebrew Bibles have totally different names of their Bibles. They don't, their names of each book is different.
Yeah.
So in the Hebrew Bible's names, the names of each book in Hebrew makes a lot more sense, actually, than what these weird Greek names that we have. Deuteronomy means second law. What does that even mean?
Second law.
Anyway,
Well, I think
it's
that
random.
refers all of Leviticus.
I'm looking at the big picture here, and it's like, wait a minute. I want to read about these prophets right after reading about what happened in the same time period. You know what I mean?
Well, we could, except I think some of those little stories are important to the region where there was at. So, like all the stuff that we're reading now with Moab and the map that you showed, that plays into the book of Ruth and other stories right after that because it shows what
Well,
happened.
yeah, Ruth should go right here, definitely,
Yeah,
because that has to come before David.
right.
Um, but um, but I think it's organized by genre, really. And so they stuck all the prophets at the end, which is I think is a huge mistake. Partly because the prophets are kind of hard to understand for most people, you know.
Well,
Let's
we
stick all
can
the
we
weird
can
stuff at the end. It's like no, the weird stuff, the prophets are like essential, more
Well, why don't we
essential.
skip to the prophets when it's time to talk about them? We could
Yeah,
do that.
I'm just rambling, just a rant, just a
Mhm.
rant.
All right. Well, we're good at that. So, all
All right,
right.
so
Well,
next week, numbers. The
yeah,
last episode, I think we can cover
33
33
to
to
36.
36
Yeah.
because these are all kind of short. Well, that's not that short, is it? But they're kind of
Yeah.
they're
And I think
shorter.
towards the last two chapters anyway, they're just finishing up their genealogy stuff.
Look at the last one's only 13 verses.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not a problem. So we're starting what, 33,
Yes.
the
33 to, yeah.
to
Okay. Yeah.
36. Yeah, next week. And then that'll
And
be
then
the
we're
end of
going to have a
Numbers.
different format for Deuteronomy, I guess.
Well, we'll just see how it goes. If we can make the episodes a little shorter, and I got a lot of stuff I got to do, so it takes a lot of time to study up on 3 chapters at once.
Yeah.
Um, it,
And you've been
and
doing
so
good so far.
if it was one or two, like Deuteronomy, I mean, it starts out with 46 verses, and then 37. We'll just see how it goes. Maybe try to keep these shorter,
Yeah.
because the only feedback I've gotten really is some of the
Too
three
long.
hour 3 hours is a bit long for people to.
Absorb.
It's intimidating. Yeah, to absorb maybe one or 2 hours, maybe keep it a
All
little
right.
shorter.
We'll
So
cut it in half, 1 to 1.5 hours.
yeah. How come there's a thumbs up there?
Yeah, I was
You see
just,
that?
you got bubbles popping in your
Was
stream.
that you?
No, I
I
haven't.
didn't do that. That was
I didn't
weird. Who
do
did
that
that?
either.
Whoa. We started talking about demons and we went off the rails.
Well, well, I am so now curious about those other books. Like, I don't know. I have to
They're
find
kind
out.
of weird. I mean, they're kind of, I mean, I actually I just started reading a book about them as well. So, there's a history about why they're not in the Bible, the English Bibles today, right now, but they were absolutely in the King James Version, but they were kind of considered Apocrypha as well already by that point, and by the early Christians. They were kind of in a separate category
So, do
of
they
like
explain why
weird
the
stuff.
Old Testament never really focused on those kinds of spiritual things, and then all of a sudden it did?
Yeah, yeah. We can talk about that
Yeah,
later.
next time.
Yeah. Yeah, there is some explanations um, about that,
I think
but
my
it's a good
explanation,
observation. Yeah.
yeah, my explanation, or what I have a revelation about is that once I didn't realize the Nephilims were still around in that region or anywhere. So then they started dying off, being killed. Their spirits got left behind.
That's yeah. That's I think the book of Enoch outright says that. New Testament doesn't really explain where they come from,
No, but I
but I
don't
mean
doubt it.
I wonder if it's possible. But like all these Canaanites and stuff, like
Yeah,
they're always basically just exterminating them all the time, more or less. They do they do offer them peace actually, but there's kind of a code of conduct.
yeah.
But I wonder if they were demonically possessed. Anyway,
But you,
they don't really say that necessarily, but like they they're worshiping all these gods. They're constantly
make you
they're in
think.
covenant with all these
Yeah,
demonic gods, right? So why wouldn't
right.
they? And that's
It
why maybe
wouldn't.
they are demonically possessed. The Canaanites were. We're just not
Yeah,
really
but we
told
still
that.
have to establish where they would have come from. So the fact that Nephilims were living in that region, the
Well, they were getting
giants,
killed. They killed
yeah.
a lot,
So
like the in the book of the king, King David
yeah,
killed some giants. So like when Goliath died, what happened to
yeah,
his
his
spirit,
spirit, right. So it now makes total sense to me. When Jesus came, he was casting out all those demons because there was stuff happening here that was very spiritual, and the old world existed in some format that I
And by
thought,
the way, yeah, Jerusalem used to be called Jebus or Yebus, which is the Jebusites used to
yeah,
live in Jerusalem.
yeah,
So the Jebusites are one of these giant tribes,
yeah,
right?
'cause
In
that
Gaza,
region,
that's where the Goliath and those guys came from.
yeah,
But they're always around, like in the rest of these historical narratives here, there's tons of giants as they, because this is when they really start to enter the land. Joshua and Judges, there's a lot of, and then even through these Book of Kings and Samuel and all this, there's giants throughout this whole thing.
yeah. But now that makes total sense. It's covering that history, and right after all of this is done, then it's time for Jesus.
And then they're put into exile at the end of 2 Chronicles, and then Ezra, they start coming back to the
And you
land
know
again
why the
after
Psalms is in
Babylon.
the
See, Babylon is right between here.
I
Go
think I
ahead.
know why Psalms are put in right in that little section, maybe Job too, is because when you
Uh,
read the Psalms, and because I've been doing songs of them, so it's now ingrained in my head. Uh, it's always making plea to God, and like it's saying salvation of God, and then also taking judgment and vengeance against the wicked. It always
oh
reveals,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, the thing
So,
is, though, most of these, not all of them, but most of them are written by David, and David's way up here, like 2
yeah.
Samuel. So, you
But
know,
then it also shows the plight that they were having to deal with the situations.
yeah, again, talking
So,
about this period. Job is
yeah,
like off in its own world. I don't, Job is probably really old, but
yeah.
it's kind of its own little story.
But it all reveals the character of God or what he has to do in order for the next books to
See,
be understood.
I think I'd have to look at the Hebrew Bible, but I think I would know what I would do. I would put the prophets before the wisdom literature. Maybe the Psalms go up there, but like Job, Proverbs, all these Song of Songs, I would put at the end.
Except the
That's what I would
Proverbs
do.
were written by Solomon.
Maybe.
It said so.
Well, yeah,
The
there's
he
different.
was the most wisest person at
He,
that
he
time.
also was an idolater.
Yeah, but God gave him a gift, right? He said, "Well, you didn't ask for money, so I'll give you the money all you want." Plus, because he only asked for wisdom. So he gave him the highest wisdom of any person on the planet at that time. So,
No, yeah, no. But he whored after other
yeah.
gods.
But even with all his wisdom, I think he wrote the book of Ecclesiastes.
Maybe. Yeah, I
Yes.
said maybe.
I like that book. I actually can't wait to get to some of the
Maybe.
books.
Um, Jewish Bible. I had a Jewish Bible. What happened to it? Jewish Bible. I just want to show you the
And I learned a lot from Songs of Song the first time too, when I was making a song about that song. Some of this stuff is crazy today. They don't understand. Like, okay, well, I guess we'll talk about it then. But I like all those little books, or some are big books, like Psalms. It'll take me forever. But I'm learning a lot as I do the songs for them.
Jewish. I can't find my Jewish Bible.
I think they changed
Anyway,
stuff though in the Jewish version because they
well, I
weren't,
don't know. It's just probably a different. The English one would just be a different translation. Um,
but they don't accept Christ, so their version doesn't.
oh yeah, the New Testament. Um,
But even the Old Testament, they changed
maybe,
stuff.
maybe. I don't know.
I've
That's
heard
weird.
it.
I can't find
It's
it. I
not the
was just looking at
same.
it the other day. Um, anyway,
All right, next week,
I'll
last
show it to you next week.
Numbers. I feel like we have to celebrate when we finish that book, but you don't like.
Celebrate by taking a break.
Yeah.
Look at all these different Bibles I have.
Yeah.
Jewish.
Well, it's the software that comes with them, right? Or did you have to buy those?
Uh, to buy, you got to buy the books, but you can get a package deal. So this is Logos, but it's you get a free version, but it's only useful if you have a lot of books, you know. So I do have a lot of books now, um, like more than I can possibly read.
Mm.
Oh, here it is. Oh, it's called the Complete Jewish Bible. That's why I missed it. Check this out. Okay, it's
Oh,
the
they got
Complete
their
Jewish. I
Jewish
don't know like
ones.
when this was written or whatnot, but it's an English translation. See, they kind of put the names in Hebrew like
Yeah.
this. But you can see, okay, so you got one kings, two kings. So after actually what they do after two kings, they don't
They
put
put,
chronicles.
yeah, they put
That's shoved down to the
Isaiah.
very end. Although I think this is a mistake. I think you could put one and two chronicles here. And then look
Yeah.
at this, Isaiah right there. In see, I
Yeah.
was thinking of this myself though. I because I just finished two chronicles and I was like, wait a minute. I got to read Isaiah right now. That makes more sense. And here it is. Look at this. Jewish Bible, Isaiah comes right after this because
And
that's
then they put all the
Isaiah's,
prophets.
and then all the prophets right here, right?
Yeah.
It makes total sense because these prophets are prophesying during this time period right here. And then you
Yeah.
see the Israel whoring around with the other gods, and then Malachi, and then the Psalms,
And the Proverbs and Job and
Proverbs, Job.
Solomon. But
Yeah,
Ruth,
I wouldn't, Ruth needs to be up here
yeah, that can't be at the
After
end.
Judges for sure,
Right.
because Ruth comes before David.
You know why they didn't put Ruth up? Because that is a
I don't know.
lineage to Christ. They got rid of things that,
No, it's still in their book. I think they just thought
yeah,
that was its own story, unrelated to the historical
yeah,
narratives of all the kings.
but I
Yeah.
bet you the wording of
Yeah,
it
maybe.
is
It's
different.
not as important. Yeah, it's not as it is very theologically important and it needs to be before Samuel. But then Job's and then Lamentations, Esther,
So they put
Daniel.
Chronicles
Daniel should be with
last.
yeah, which is because a lot of it kind of repeats Kings, but it's a little different as well. Ne ne Nehemiah, why is Nehemiah way down there as well?
Yeah, he
That's
should
kind
have
of weird.
been closer because he's the one who said build a wall.
Well, here, okay, Ezra and Nehemiah. See, yeah, so it's not exactly perfect either, but I kind of agree with this putting the prophets here, though, actually.
But you know what? We'll
Um,
keep that in mind as we read them as to why God wanted it earlier.
well, I'd have to go back and look at I think the actual Hebrew Bible from way back then was more like this. I'd have to look into
Find
this a
that.
bit more. And, the prophets, anyway, because if you read two Chronicles and all that, they're Isaiah is talking about the same exact things that are happening at that time.
Yeah, but there must be a reason because remember the
I
whole
think no, I
Bible.
think the original Hebrew Bible was organized like this,
Yeah, that may be, but remember God
which
has
is the
got a
Bible.
hand in all of this. So,
It's the Bible. Mankind messed it all up.
God ordains it though.
People messed it all up.
Yeah, we will always
anyway.
mess it up. That's what we
I'll
got.
look into this actually. I just started a book about all this kind of stuff, so I'll know more. Just in terms of like factual historical data, I'll know more. But we could just read it. It's going to freak people out if we could just stick to the normal modern day English Bibles, the way things are. But again,
I mean,
King
all
James
the,
version is different.
yeah, when we read a book, we're just reading it in its own playlist. So if you want to jump around, we can jump around. But I just think mentally, I like to keep some order so I know why things are moving the way they are.
But like this version here, like it's like, okay, so you read 2 Chronicles and all that stuff, and then
But that
then you
order so far is appropriate. It's following the God story from Genesis to,
no, but then there's this huge time jump, and then you finally read the prophets way down here. I guess the Christians put it this way because these prophecies are pointing to they're fulfilled.
yeah,
Matthew uses the word fulfill like a couple dozens of times, really.
right.
So that's probably why it's like, okay, here's all the prophecy about Jesus, and here's Jesus.
Mhm.
But they're prophesying about Jesus way back here during
Yeah, in
this
every
time.
book, even in Job, they're prophesying about Jesus. Every book they're doing that.
I know. Yes. Yes. So
Yeah.
I'm not, I'm fine with the canon the way it is. I'm not, that's not my point. I'm the order of the canon.
Well, if
I
you
have some
want,
questions. I have some questions about
we can jump to
the order. We
we
have
can
to
jump
reorder
to
the
that
canon.
book to keep it right
We have to
after the
reorder the canon.
Chronicles. No, I mean, we just have to finish the book.
But I mean, people can read the book in any order they want, really, the
Yeah,
Bible,
I think
right?
we do. I do
So,
still. Like, if I don't have time to read Isaiah, I'm just gonna go the one that's a little easier to read. But that's it kind of fractures my mind because I want to just follow the story. Like, all these characters that show up,
yeah,
they're
these
so
guys
important.
are these
Yeah,
guys were alive during this time.
right.
And
So
even back here.
in a way, I'm
So
kind of learning in like a soap opera. Like what happened next? Who's involved? Like the characters just keep coming in and going, right? If it was a
yeah.
movie,
Anyway, all right. Well, let's end it here
okay.
with this question about even Revelation was heavily disputed, actually, whether they should include it or not. That was one of these ones at the end of the New Testament
Yeah,
were
but
kind
it
of
did
like, hey,
say,
we're not sure like who wrote these or what these are about. These are kind of weird.
yeah, but
So
Revelation
anyway.
it said you're blessed if you read it. So we're really gonna read it.
No, it's in the canon, that was like the one of the other ones were like automatically in, no dispute. But Revelation, they had to think about that a while.
Yeah, because it's all talking about God's wrath and judgment. Who wants to put that in there unless it's a
Well,
God
no, it's talking about it's a book of hope, really,
for
an
those who
encouragement.
follow Christ, but not for the wicked?
Yeah, well, that's the audience. Who else is going to read it?
Well, I hope
Anyway,
to get there. Yeah. All right.
all
Thank
right.
you so
Well,
much.
thanks a
Happy
lot,
New
and
Year,
see you
everybody.
next week. Yep.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Bye.